Good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Mary, the Book World editor at The Washington Post, which is a charter sponsor of the National Book Festival. First, a word of thanks to the co-chairman of the festival, David Rubenstein, and the other generous sponsors who've made this event possible. If you'd like to add your financial support, please note the information in your program. We'll have some time after this presentation for your questions, and I've been asked to remind you that if you come to the microphone, you will be included in the videotape of this event, which may be broadcast at a later date. Our guest this afternoon is Alexandra Bracken.
Hello.
Alex sold her first novel while still in college, and she has since had a prolific career, publishing roughly a novel a year since 2010, including The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding, The Darkest Minds, which was just turned into a movie.
It was.
And the novelization of Star Wars, A New Hope. It is my extreme pleasure to introduce Alexandra. Alex. Yes.
Thank you guys.
Yes.
This is my first time at the National Book Festival, and I am like, wow, this is amazing. You guys are so lucky this is right here.
I know. I'd love to start with sort of the beginning of your career, because not many authors, sell their first book while still in college. So how did that happen?
So I was one of those kids that knew from a really, really young age what I wanted to do. And then I think like one of the secrets of being an author is that you have to be like a little bit deluded. Like you have to like have this, just titanium confidence, because so much of becoming an author and writing is getting rejected. Like you get rejected from editors and agents, you get rejected by readers who don't like your books. Like it's a lot of rejection, so you really have to love it and believe in yourself and believe that it's a possibility in the face of very dire odds of ever having a book published. But I knew from a really, really young age that I loved writing, and it was because of my third grade teacher. Did you ever have to do something like this where you would write like a little short story and illustrate it, and like my teacher stapled it together and then bound it with cardboard and contact paper?
Or laminated?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Like, I wrote a book, this is amazing, I want to do this forever. So I knew from a really young age, but I wrote a lot of fan fiction while I was in my middle school and high school phase. And then when I got to college, I had never written an original novel or original long-form story before, and so it was National Novel Writing Month. How many of you guys participate in NaNoWriMo? Yeah. So I was like, I'm going for it. Like, it's not already challenging enough to be a freshman in college. Like, I'm a double major. I'm going to do NaNoWriMo too and write 50,000 words in 1 month. And then I just became obsessed with it, and I really wanted to make it work. I almost think I wanted to prove my dad wrong, because he wanted me to be a lawyer so badly. And I went through, I took all the LSAT courses, and I was like, okay, like my dad always says, he was very conservative in that he wanted us to build a solid financial base for ourselves. So he's like, become a lawyer, and then later in life, do what you love. And I was like, no, I'm gonna do it now. But I wrote and wrote and wrote, and I finally sold my book my senior year of college. It was actually the second book. The first book got rejected by everybody in the kid lit industry.
And that was your NaNoWriMo book?
That first NaNoWriMo book was like,
yeah.
I feel like one of my friends, like very sweetly, sent it off to one of those, I hate to call them vanity presses, but that's, I think, the actual term for it, is when you send it off and they make it into a book for you. And I was like, why did you do this? I'm gonna throw it on the fire, get rid of this. No one should ever read this. But yeah, it was a really quick journey, but the reality of being a writer is that you cannot support yourself on writing alone unless you have this insane, crazy deal right out of the gate. And so I worked in the publishing industry for about 5 years and would write only on the weekends. I wrote the entire Darkest Minds series that way, keeping really crazy hours. Like I'd come home from work at 6 p.m. and then write until 4 o'clock in the morning, and then go to sleep and then write all day Saturday. That's like the level of delusion that I had, and determination. So 1 part delusion, 1 part determination, 1 part love.
Yeah. And I want to hear a little bit about the fan fiction.
Oh my God.
Since you opened up that box, I mean, I didn't.
The worst thing about the fan fiction is that it's still online, because
everyone's like typing into their phones.
I know. Oh my God, you guys, it's because I use like a Hotmail account, and I forgot that I would have to, the old Hotmail account before Gmail, like, I think I deleted that account, and so now I can't access the fanfiction.net account to go in and like delete everything. So every once in a while I like wake up in a cold sweat at someone discovering my like terrible Sailor Moon fanfiction. I wrote a lot of Star Wars fanfiction too, and a little bit of Harry Potter. What else did I write? Yeah. It was like a good mix.
So how long are you, sort of gestating these ideas before you're getting them out? I mean, you are producing books really, really quickly. So like
Yes.
for the Darkest Minds, let's say, how long were you sort of thinking about this story before putting it to paper?
So I've gotten into this, I always say, and I think a lot of authors would agree, you're always working on 3 books at once. You're always you're drafting one, you're editing another one, and then another one is getting ready to be published. Like that's the reality of publishing a book a year. It's like, oh my God, this is so many books, so many words. But it depends. Sometimes I really have found that if I try to write an idea too soon before it has had enough time to bake, it goes nowhere. I feel so frustrated with it. I don't understand it. I can't connect with the character, and like connecting with the main character is the most important thing to me. If I don't relate to that character on an emotional level or understand their emotional arc, then the story feels like a dud to me and I give up on it. So with The Darkest Minds, that series took me there was a year between when my debut novel, Brightly Woven, which is now out of print, R.I.P. Egmont, USA. It was a very, very sweet little fantasy that sold absolutely nothing.
But it got you.
Again,
It got you
a
your
little bit
start.
of delusion. I can do it. Like I can still make it. It's gonna be fine. And so it took me like another year and a half to like come up with an idea that I really loved and develop it enough. And that, while I was working on the Darkest Minds series, I was thinking about Passenger and Wayfarer, which was the next series. So now they kind of overlap, and it's fun to kind of cheat on the draft that you're writing with like the new shiny idea that you want to write next.
And are you kind of wedded to the characters? I mean, you were talking about how you have to really love the main character. So how are you kind of thinking about the characters? How are you dreaming them up?
Sometimes, sounds very frightening, but like sometimes it's just a voice in your head that just kind of starts talking to you. It's like one line and you understand that character's voice really well. With the Darkest Mind series, and I have not experienced this with any of my other books, it was like Athena springing from Zeus's head. They were like fully formed. I knew exactly, like I knew weird details about their lives, like I had known them as real people. I just had like such a good sense of who those characters were. But a lot of the time, I really do sit down and interrogate the character. And I love, is anyone familiar with John Truby, his work? So he wrote a book called Anatomy of a Story, and he really changed the way that I think about characters and setting up a character arc, because he talks about 2 different needs that the character has, which is a moral need and a psychological need. And the psychological need is how they're hurting themselves without realizing it and how they're interacting with the world. And the moral need is how they are hurting the others around them without realizing it. And that arc is like the journey to the realization of how they need to change and why. So I think about character a lot that way. Sometimes I just like, I love giving characters really big arcs where they start in one place and then end in a completely different place. And it just feels so rewarding. But I don't know about you guys, characters are the most important element of any story to me. If I'm not connecting with the character, it just, like even when as a reader, if I'm not connecting with the character, I put the book down. And really have learned, like I'm an Outlander fan, and I will like follow those characters through anything at this point. Like through the most painful of circumstances. It's been many years now, I'm still reading those books, but it's because I love the characters. So if you can hit upon a character that people love, it really makes a huge difference. And I think that's why The Darkest Minds broke out where my debut novel did.
And do you know going into something that it's going to be a series? And how do you know when you're doing a series, like when it's over?
Yeah, that's a good question. I still really love the trilogy. I think that's just the natural way that we have ingrained in us of thinking about story and thinking about how to break up a character's arc. But sometimes I know, like from the outset, I'm like, this is only 2 books, and so duologies are really a lot more difficult to write than I thought they were going to be, just because it's such a different way of breaking up the story, and you really almost do cut one major story down the middle, but then the first half has to resolve itself, and the second half has to pick up. It's a fine balancing act with the duology, and I think you just have more room to explore in a trilogy. But sometimes I'm like with this book, I was like, this is a standalone. This is definitely a standalone. Her arc completes itself. There's some like plot threads that are still open, but for the most part, it's standalone. So sometimes you get a sense, and then other times you really are sort of surprised when you reach the end of the story, I would say.
Do you normally know how things are going to end when you begin, or is it?
Yes.
Okay, so you've got it mapped out.
Yes, I love endings. Endings are my favorite part of any book, not just because it's finally finished, but also because it's like the culmination of all of these emotions and all of the action, and then bringing that character to the new place and discovering who they are. So I have to know exactly how the story ends, because I have to know what I'm building towards. And that it's usually I even know the very last beat of the scene. Sometimes I'll go ahead and I'll write that last scene at the end of the Word document and leave it there and just like keep writing towards it, eventually hit it.
Okay, so we have to talk about the movie.
Okay.
Movie, very exciting that you had a book turned into a movie. And,
yeah.
How did it come about? Tell us a little about that.
I'm still trying to figure out how to describe this experience. It's very surreal, but it's like there are wonderful aspects of it, there are horrible aspects of it. It's just such a unique, words are failing me, which is not great because I write words for a living. It's just I need like time to process it a little bit, but The Darkest Minds was optioned by Fox and 21 Laps all the way back in 2011 before it was published, and for many years, it just sat there, and they did nothing with it. And I will be the first to confess that, do you guys know what a film option is? Do you want me to explain it very quickly? So the difference between a film option and someone buying the rights is that the film option is essentially the studio or the production company paying to reserve the exclusive rights to eventually maybe buy the full rights. So it's sort of like a way that they can pay less but not let anyone else have it. And it's for a set amount of time. And so the option, it's usually like 6 months to 18 months. Sometimes the options are really long. They're like years long. But it's really a gamble because you never know. And most authors like myself do not have any sort of control. Like you can be like, well, I would like to have it written into the contract that I can review the script. And they're like, nope. Like you really don't, unless you're, Suzanne Collins and Stephanie Meyer. I don't think you have a ton of negotiating power. But so they optioned it back in 2011. Literally everyone I talked to, including my agent, my editor, other writers, they were like, well, that's great, but like a lot of books get optioned and they never see the light of day. So like, just prepare yourself for that emotional journey and disappointment. But again, delusion. Yeah. I felt like, I don't know, there's still a chance. Maybe I'll stay hopeful. And then they just kept renewing the option over and over again. And I was very cautiously optimistic. And then the craziest thing was, there would be like years in between getting little bits of news about like Chad being hired as a screenwriter and them, going back to the studio because the studio's suddenly interested again. And then when it finally happens, it all happens in like 5 minutes. It just goes like this, and then it's like, so you don't really have time to process it in the lead up. But yeah, it took them 5-6 years to eventually make the movie, and then all of a sudden they decided the time is now.
And do they consult you at all when they're writing the script, or is it like you have given your baby to them and it's like, okay, it's yours now?
So early on, I got lucky because Chad Hodge, who's the screenwriter, you guys might know his work from Wayward Pines and Good Behavior. He adapted those for the screen. He and I had many conversations very early on about the characters and the story and how it might break down on screen, and he asked me for my opinion on different changes he was thinking about and that sort of thing. And he did not have to do that. He wanted to do it because he likes other writers and feels like writers have to protect other writers, especially in the Hollywood sphere. Because as I've learned, Hollywood's Hollywood writers get treated horribly, and like their work can be completely changed on them, and they still have their name on it, and you're like, I didn't write any of this because you guys rewrote it all. It's a very strange process.
Makes you appreciate writing novels, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he was like, because the studio, okay, I feel like I had to prove to the studio that I was not gonna like go ballistic on them at the drop of a hat. Like I really had to prove to them over the years that I could be accepting of changes. I felt like I had to audition as a normal, sane person for them. It's true, like they really didn't want me to read the script. Like it was a fight to read the script, yeah. So this was, I don't think I even read their shooting script, which at that point had gone through so many drafts and had gone through all the notes from the studio, all the notes from the director, everything. I didn't read it until like they started shooting. So this is the level of involvement that I had at that point. But yeah.
And then were you able to go to the set at all? Or
I did, but okay. I'm trying to remember who said this. It was another author who had their work adapted. What's his name? I'll tweet it later. Look for that. I have to source this quote. But he was like, Hollywood likes to pretend authors are dead until they absolutely can't pretend anymore. So I did not get invited to set until the last 2 days of filming. Again, I think they really thought I was gonna like lose it on them. But I love the set visit and I love meeting the crew. I really love the cast in the movie. They're wonderful and they have really bright futures. But it was like, it's very clear to me that I'm not going to be involved until promotion time comes.
Oh my gosh. Did you get to at least see it before it came out? Or did you take a bunch of friends to the premiere?
They did not want me to see an early cut, and I'm kind of glad because I guess early cuts are a hot mess. Like I don't think I realized that it goes through, the story changes a lot in editing. Film editing is really interesting. If you've ever, have you guys ever seen that the YouTube video about how editing saved Star Wars?
So good.
It's so interesting, and I was like, wow, this is a really cool way of thinking about storytelling. Anyway, tangent. They did show it to me early. They showed me the pretty much final cut in April, but it was like the picture was locked, as they say, so they're like, we're just tweaking sound, and I was like, oh, do you want any feedback or notes? Nope. It's like, cool.
But you have so many other things on your plate, so it's fine, right? I mean, it's like you have this crazy schedule where you're basically like writing a book a year, basically.
Yeah,
right?
Some years I've written 2 books in a year, which...
How are you doing this?
I don't want to say a complete abandonment of my social life, but like there are some really rough stretches where, because I love writing so much, I'm willing to make it work. And also I'm very prolific. I write very quickly and then edit very quickly. And a lot of authors have a process that takes them more time, and I finally, after like 10 books in, finally have a process where I am very efficient. Most of my deadlines, most of them. Sometimes it's not my fault, but you get to a place where it becomes pretty routine, and so sometimes I'm working on a story, 2 years before it's published, but it just happens to be published in the same year as another book. So I've overlapped into like 2 books. In a year, and that's crazy. I don't know how much I love doing that. I don't really love doing that.
So what's the process that works for you? Do you have like a certain number of pages or words or hours that you have to spend every day, or how does it work?
Oh my gosh, you guys, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I write really long books. It's like
you need to stop doing that.
My editor is a really slow reader, and I was like, how did we find each other? This is like not a good situation. But I just love long books. As a kid, I loved reading long books. As a teen, I love reading long books. So I feel like this is for all of you out there who feel the same and want to like live in a book's world for a while. My process is, I used to keep those crazy hours. I'm not even joking. I'm pretty sure I had a Mountain Dew addiction. Would go to Mountain Dew. I wish. Go to the mountain to collect the dew. This is when I lived in New York, I would go to the CVS that was right on the corner, which is like so dangerous when you have a Mountain Dew addiction.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a 24-hour CVS too. So I don't know if there's anything more shameful than it being like 2 o'clock in the morning and going to buy yourself a Mountain Dew and nothing else. I also had so many kids in that I feel like God was trying to send me a message to stop drinking Mountain Dew. This is another tangent, you guys, I'm really sorry. Because I would have kids come up to me while I was like selecting my 3 bottles of Mountain Dew for the weekend, 1 per day. And they'd be like, you shouldn't drink that. That's gonna rot your... It was a different child every time. The big guy tried 3 times and I was like, nope, it's mine.
I think 1 a day shows some restraint, actually. I mean, right?
So to answer the question about how I write so quickly, it used to be Mountain Dew. And keeping very strange hours when no one was on the internet to talk back to me on social media. But now I keep very normal hours. I have a dog who reminds me I have to human and have other responsibilities besides sitting in a chair. And the difference is I write full time now, which was always my dream, and I feel very lucky to be able to do it. But it really, those 4 years in New York when I was working full time and also writing full time and traveling a lot for work, I was willing to do it because I wanted it so badly. And now I'm like, oh good, I can see my friends because I don't have to write from midnight to 4 a.m. anymore.
What was the moment when you realized you could make that leap from working publishing and doing this on the side to making this like your full-time job?
Okay, this is a little crass, so I feel like it's impolite to talk about money, but it was when I made twice as much money on my books than I did at my day job. I was like, I really love my coworkers, but I love the health insurance I have here. But it really, more so than like balancing income, it was like how much I had saved at that point in case I never sold another book. My father made me deeply paranoid about that kind of thing. So I wanted to save a certain amount of money, and my stress levels had gotten to like a toxic level because I was traveling a lot for work, and my editor, you know, it's like the constant push and pull struggle of me writing very long things and her reading very slowly, and then that editorial timeline condensing like very quickly. So it was a balance of one of these things has to give, and I want to go for the thing that I love and that I've always dreamed about doing, even though it makes me sad to leave the coworkers I love, to leave my health insurance.
Do you find, is there some sort of community of other writers so it doesn't feel so lonely, or how does that work?
Oh yeah, oh my gosh. So when I still lived in New York, there would be days when I spent a year in New York writing full time because I wanted to experience New York as a person who could actually go out and see her friends, which did not happen that much when I was, trying to hold those 2 full-time jobs and make that book a year schedule. So I would just I would rotate between the 5 Starbuckses that were within like a 2-block radius and would interact with humans at Starbucks and then return home. But now I'm gotten much closer to other author friends, and so we have just like a constant chat going that we kind of check in and out of throughout the day, and that gives you some interaction. And I feel bad for my UPS delivery guy sometimes because I'm like, wait, stay a moment and chat with me. Where are you going next?
I haven't spoken to anyone in hours.
Yeah. I can feel myself like, especially when you're on a really tight deadline, you're like, I think I've forgotten how to be a human. I just want to talk to people for just like word vomit at them for many hours.
We're here for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I have to ask you about the novelization of Star Wars, which is so amazing to get that gig, but also, I mean, a lot of pressure because talk about fans. They are crazy. So tell us a little bit about how that came about. Did you get a lot of support? Were you terrified? What?
So there's some backstory here. Sorry guys, I'm a bit of a rambler if you couldn't tell. Hence why my books are so long. So my dad, from the time I was in 1st grade until the time he passed away in 2012, was a Star Wars collector. And he was a hardcore Star Wars collector. We went to the very first celebration when it was outside in Colorado and it was pouring rain in April, like that level of devotion. And so I really grew up with Star Wars and lived in that world and that fandom. Wrote a lot of Star Wars fan fiction. From ages 8 to 12, I pretty much only wanted to read Star Wars books. So that was a huge part of my literacy, was just reading Star Wars books over and over again. So I really have always loved Star Wars, but I got offered to write this book because My editor knew I could turn it in quickly because another author had been slated to write it and she couldn't do it, and she backed out at the very last minute. So they were like, you need a pinch hitter, like somebody who we know who can deliver it, and also someone who knows Star Wars and would want to do it in this short amount of time. And I was like, me. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I wasn't like that, because when my editor called me, I almost said no, because it's so much pressure, really. And like I said, I had grown up reading Star Wars, and I was like, I don't know if I can live up to the standards that I have for reading Star Wars books. And the other thing was, I hadn't really watched Star Wars since my dad had passed away, because I associated it with him so strongly. And so I was like, oh, I feel like this is going to be so painful. And like having to do the promotional aspect will be painful, having to talk about it. It was great, because if anyone has lost a person, you know that like connecting with the things that that person loved is like a great way to connect with them again, even after they're gone. So it had the opposite effect, and I'm really glad I ended up doing it. But I did have to prove myself to the Star Wars fans. They really are, like, ended up writing an essay about my experiences with my dad and growing up as a Star Wars collector and losing him. And I feel like after that, people were a lot more sold than they were before, because the Star Wars community is very protective of the characters that they love and the story that they love. And then I think once they recognize she is one of us, not an interloper, it was great. But Star Wars fans on a whole are wonderful, you know. Some fans are not wonderful.
Well, especially when you're on social media too, which I know you're active on social media, and then anyone can access you at any time. And sometimes that's great with like these amazing people here, but sometimes it's like a crazy Star Wars fan. You never know, right?
Wait, I don't know if you're referencing this, but I just got attacked by a ton of Kylo Ren fans.
Oh, I didn't know that at all. What did you do to Kylo Ren?
I tweeted something that was a joke. And they really love Kylo Ren, and they are very protective of Adam Driver. And I was like, I love Adam Driver, I just don't love the character of Kylo Ren. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they are. That was a lot. I was like, wow, this is like a hive. Like, they just keep coming.
Oh, yeah. Once it starts.
No, I had to mute the words Adam, Driver, Kylo, Ren. Like, they're still muted, because I'm still getting tweets from, they like discovered a tweet from a year ago, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys.
So sorry.
I get it. I know, but it's like that intensity of fandom. Like, on one hand, I'm like, oh my God, you guys. Like, it doesn't hurt my feelings that they're like, you know, I hope every project you write from now on fails, because you said this, what we think is an awful thing. But, you know, they love it so much.
I know. What's the creative process like with something like that? Because, you know, with Darkest Minds or your other books, it's like you're starting from scratch. But in this, you kind of have to work within a rubric. So
yes, it was really, it was such an interesting experience. I asked them to send me the style guide that they have for all of Star Wars, just because I wanted to read it. That's the level of fan I am. I'm like, I just want to see how you guys like classify everything and break it down. But so they told me I could, what they really wanted with these retellings were, they wanted Tom Engelberger retold Return of the Jedi, Adam Gidwitz did Empire Strikes Back, and I did A New Hope. And so they wanted us to approach each story in our own way and put our own spin on it. So I was like, what does that look like? I thought about retelling it from the perspective of someone who worked on the Death Star. I thought about Adam retold his in second person and had like a really cool spin on it and all of that. And so I decided that what I love most about Star Wars are the characters. So I was going to do a really deep dive into the characters, because like it's still very surface in A New Hope. If you go back and rewatch it, you're like, oh, like why isn't Princess Leia crying when her whole planet and everyone she loves gets destroyed? Like, what explains her strength in that moment? Why is she comforting Luke when he loses a guy he's known for 6 hours and he's not comforting her? Like, so I wanted to really fill in those blanks, and so I got to pull directly from the script, the film script. I got to pull from the radio drama script, which is really interesting. I had to update some stuff because we don't use data tapes anymore. yeah, the Death Star tapes, stealing the tapes from the Death Star. Like, okay, I don't think kids are gonna know what that is. And I got to actually invent new scenes too that also help fill in those blanks. And so my retelling is told from a close third-person point of view. It starts with Leia telling the story, then Han picks it up midway through, and then Luke finishes out the story. So it's an interesting and fun challenge to play with point of view on that one. And you get to work with the Lucasfilm story group. They are the keepers of the canon. Their level of knowledge about the Star Wars universe is insane. It is amazing. The story that we always tell is Adam wanted to know if there were chickens in the Star Wars universe. Something you don't think about, right? So he wanted to know if there were chickens in the Star Wars universe because he wanted to write some sort of new Jedi fable for it. And so Pablo, who's one of the story group division members, he just sort of like sat back and like tapped into the database in his mind and was like, 11. He's like, there are 11 chickens in the Return of the Jedi script. So he knew that off the top of his head, which is like crazy to me. And then he continues on, because I love the story group. He's like, and you can also assume that there are falcons because of the Millennium Falcon too, somewhere in the universe. So they are wonderful. They, as I learned, are wonderful confidence boosts because they are not going to let you fall on your face. They're like, it is impossible to write a terrible Star Wars book because they are there to help you and guide you. And the funniest part of when I was working on my book was I wasn't able to, I like filtered in a little bit of the expanded universe stuff. I kind of sprinkled it in for my expanded universe fans, now Star Wars Legends, RIP. I sprinkled some mentions in just to see what Lucasfilm Story Group would let me get away with, since it wasn't technically canon anymore. And I tried to use Han and Chewie's previously established backstory, and they went in and they took out all of the references to it. And like at the end, the last one, there was just like a smiley face, and it was like, nope, like you can't. And so I asked my editor, I was like, has anyone not seen The Force Awakens before I say this? Okay, good. Sorry in advance, it's been a couple years. So I was like, are you guys gonna do a young Han Solo movie? And my poor editor is not a good liar. He's like, no, definitely not. I was like, oh no, this means Han Solo is gonna die in this movie, because that's the only reason to do a young Han Solo movie, is if he's gone from the main storyline. He was like, no. So I kept that knowledge secret. I was like Obi-Wan in his cave. I knew something terrible was gonna happen.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that we have time for questions from the crowd. We have a couple of microphones set up here. There's one over here, and there's one over there. If
Anybody have any questions?
wants to ask any questions, we have. All right. Yes, please.
Hi.
Hi.
One, I understand your Mountain Dew addiction because I have the same problem. And
Yeah.
I was also wondering which character that you created, or even one of the Star Wars characters that you relate to most?
Oh, that I related to most. I think the thing about characters is that inevitably each one kind of inherits something from you. Like in the original Darkest Minds crew, like Ruby, I was a really shy kid. So like a lot of her introversion and a lot of her feelings of loneliness I related to a lot. But like Liam got my sense of humor, my taste in music, that kind of a thing. So I think I actually relate to Etta from Passenger quite a bit, because she was someone who was also very driven and had her mind set on a specific career. And sometimes, you know, it was very rewarding and sometimes it wasn't. So it was really interesting to explore that on paper.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll swap over to that side.
Oh, so you talked about like ending stories and how that was your favorite, but do you also feel that like empty cone of death after you finish a book? is that just the readers that have to deal with that? They're like, what do I do with my life now?
Well, I promise, like, I think readers think that when we like kill off a character or something terrible happens, we're like, ha 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 ha. And like, maybe some authors are, but I'm always like, I'm sorry. Like, the one ending that really got me was the ending of The Darkest Minds, and I had finished it at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and even though I knew what was gonna happen, I just like couldn't fall asleep because I was so anxious and worried about those characters. And I was like, well, hopefully if I feel this way, readers will feel this way too. But yeah, I do look for some sort of like emotional punch at the end of the book, just in case you thought you were in the clear. Nope.
Enter the cone of death.
Yeah.
We'll come back to this side.
Are you planning on making another Darkest Minds book?
You know what? I would love to. I was really happy to finally come back to the world after, how many years? A couple years. I needed a break because Ruby's head is a very dark place to inhabit, and I was like, I could use a breather, and I wanted to, I really wanted to challenge myself to try to write something very different and new. But I do want to come back and explore the world. I haven't made any official plans or announced anything yet, just because I'm trying to figure out what the best story would be and figure out which emotional story and which character really compels me the most. So yes, hopefully soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we get an update on the Scorpion saga?
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry for anyone who does not know what she's talking about. So I grew up in Arizona. I lived there for 18 years before I went to William and Mary. Yeah, go try, hark upon the gale. I never once in my entire life saw a scorpion. Flash forward several years, I moved back to Phoenix, and I live in Phoenix. I grew up in Scottsdale, and so I moved to a neighborhood which I did not realize has scorpions. And so the first time I saw one outside, I did not know what to do. I tried to step on it. It wasn't working. Oh, scorpions play dead. They're so smart. They're terrifying. And so my neighbor across the street saw me kind of like muppeting out like a screaming Muppet around this very tiny little scorpion. And she came over and showed me how they kill them and was like, you should, start spraying regularly and so on and so forth. But then this monsoon season, we get really amazing, terrifying thunderstorms every summer in Arizona. We call them monsoons. And I did not realize that the monsoons drive the scorpions inside. And scorpions can fit into any space that is as thin as a credit card, in case you would like a new nightmare to think about. So they come through light fixtures, they come through vents that aren't sealed properly on the walls. And so I kept finding dead ones in my house, and my dog is very small. He's only 7 pounds. So I wasn't worried about me, I was worried about him. And I hired a company called Seal Out Scorpions, and they came and sealed my entire house. It was the most intense day of them going through every vent, trying to find all of the different places where they could enter into the house. And I haven't seen one in the house since, knock on wood. But so far, it seems okay, and I'm really excited for the weather to cool off and for them to hibernate for a while.
This could inspire your next.
I know, you guys, scorpions, look it up. They're really, so when they were doing nuclear testing out in the desert, scorpions were the only species that survived that. They were so hard to kill, and they leave pheromone trails, so if one comes in, the rest of them come in. Yeah, I hate them so much. I thought I hated spiders, and now I'm like, come spiders, kill the scorpions. Fight to the death. I'm sorry, that was such a long answer. So far, it's okay. Everything's okay.
I'm glad.
So as a young writer, and you published your first book when you were 23, so do you have, because I know finding a publisher can be hard, how do you find an editor and a publisher, and just how does that whole process work?
So there is actually a very, I feel like we're seeing younger authors now because there's such a wealth of information online, and it actually is a really good breakdown of how this process works all online, and so it's given people the ability to then submit their work. And so anyway, the process is you write your book, you edit it, you get people to read it, give you feedback when you're like, yes, it is ready. You write something that's called a query letter, which is essentially a pitch letter, and then you go online and you research all of the literary agents who represent the age group and the genre that you're interested in writing in. So what I did when I was first looking for my agent was I would look in the acknowledgments of the books that I really loved, and I would see which agent that they thanked, because I'm like, well, if they like this work, I think my work is, not the same, but comparable, or this is my dream agent. And you just send out those pitch letters, and you hope. It really only takes one agent saying yes, and then it only takes one editor saying yes. But now, I don't think, I was an editorial assistant, and I can tell you it is very rare for us to pull something from what we call the slush pile, which is an unsolicited manuscript that gets sent to us in-house. We really look, I think, editors look for agent submissions, and they read through agent submissions and prioritize them first. And now there's almost more of the gatekeepers, and they are the ones who are filtering out the manuscripts that aren't strong enough yet to be published, and so on and so forth. So your first step is really finishing the manuscript, getting it in good shape, and then looking for an agent. And I think Agent Query is still online and is still a really good resource for that. That's so exciting. Good luck.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Were there any characters where you had like specific actors and actresses in mind for the movie, or were there any actors that you just saw and were like, they should play this character?
No. You know what's funny is that Ruby, when I was figuring out what she looked like, I was like, she looks like Felicity oh my gosh, why am I blanking on her name? Felicity
Huffman?
Not Hoffman. The other one. Who was in The Theory of Everything.
Felicity Jones.
Jones, thank you. Oh my gosh, sorry, Felicity, I love you. I had just seen her in Northanger Abbey, that adaptation. I was like, I love her. And so I was thinking of her for Ruby, but it was so long between when it got optioned and when it actually got made that all of those actors like completely aged out that I had thought about over the years. And every time they would announce a new actor for the project, I was like, oh, I never would have thought of that person, but they're kind of perfect. So I will never be a casting director. But yeah, no, I didn't really have any favorites going in. And I'm trying to even remember if I suggested anyone to the director when I talked to her on the phone about it. Probably not. That was a disappointing answer, I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Hi, so what's your top advice for aspiring authors?
My gosh, what's my top advice? I mean, I feel like this is advice you've probably heard before, but read everything. One of the really fascinating things about reading different genres, even genres you think you don't like, is that they teach you things that you might not expect or that you do expect, but in a very, gosh, how do I want to say this? In a very pointed way. Like for instance, when I feel like I'm struggling with plotting or figuring out how to plant clues about a mystery within the story, I'll go back and read thrillers and read mysteries and break down how they pace out their reveals. And reading romance teaches you a great deal about creating a romantic arc, and you figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Reading nonfiction is a great source of inspiration and helps you develop your own ideas about the world. So read absolutely everything, even if you don't think you're gonna like it. Mm-hmm. Keep reading everything.
We have time for one more question over here.
So what's your number one way to handle writer's block?
My number one way of handling writer's block, was that the question?
Yeah.
Okay. So writer's block is so pesky. You really do almost have to figure out your own way of handling it. But what I have noticed for myself is that when I hit writer's block, it's because I am ignoring something that is not working in the story and I don't want to confront it. So even though it's counterintuitive, I stop working and I go back and reread through what I have and try to figure out what it is that is not working. But sometimes if it's just I can't focus on that day, or I'm stumped about how to write it, what to write next in that particular scene or for the dialogue, I switch mediums. I'll start writing by hand, which I don't know the psychology of this, but it kind of does something to your brain to either change the way you're writing or move, physically move yourself to a different location and write there. Sometimes that shakes things loose. You wouldn't think so, and sometimes even just free writing in a journal is a great way to kind of unstick yourself. So try those. Always keep I have my little writer's block journal where I just write and write and write, and it's all nonsense, but it's a great way to shake yourself out of that.
Thank you for all the great questions.
Thank you guys so much.
The Darkest Legacy is on sale here. You can get it signed by Alex. Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm signing Really quick, I'm signing from 2:30 to 3:30.
2:30 to 3:30, and watch out for those scorpions.
Yeah, oh my gosh.